Congrats to the winners there, the top 5. And we're going to transition to continue the topic on education and the future workforce of the 305. I'd like to invite Willy Orozco and Luis to please come. And these gentlemen are with the Microsoft TEALS program. So they'll share a little bit on the problem that they're solving and what they're addressing. So please, gentlemen, take a seat. So why don't you share, share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I come from the education field, so I used to teach computer science and education. I used to teach robotics, CAD design and everything. My goal was always to teach my students how to give back to society, right? Luckily, I was working for a private school, so there were a lot of resources, and we were able to actually help kids by 3D printing prosthetic hands for kids, for other kids, create costumes for kids in wheelchair, but somehow I felt that I wasn't doing enough, right? So I needed to be able to help a broader community, right? I'm also one of the founding members of the Computer Science Teacher Association. And through the association, I learned that the TEALS program was expanding, was coming to Miami, and I saw that as a way to help a lot more kids than what I was doing before. That's how I ended up working for Microsoft TEALS.
Can you share specifically about Microsoft TEALS and what Microsoft TEALS do? If Luis, maybe you can talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Luis de Mendoza here. So
Luis, just try to bring the mic up.
The Microsoft TEALS program helps high schools build sustainable computer science programs and the way that we do this is we place tech industry professionals into the classroom to support a teacher and to engage students. The reason this is necessary is because there is a huge lack of computer science education, not just in Miami, not just in Florida, but really across the U.S. So I want to pose a question to you all. How many of you believe that 75% of high schools in the U.S. teach computer science? Can you just throw your hands up if you think that number is 75%? Okay. How about 50% of high schools in America teaching computer science? Okay. Do you think it's lower than 40%? All right, we have a lot of smart people here. Yeah, so that number in Florida is 38%, and across the nation is 51%. You know, it's very difficult to place computer science teachers into classrooms that have the requisite knowledge to really engage students and to connect that content to the real world. TEALS allows volunteers to come into the classroom and help build that foundational knowledge for a teacher, often coming from a different subject area, and to engage students so that they know that their interests can be found, that they can follow computer science and connect it into something else in the real world.
So Willy, can you reflect a little bit about your experience as a teacher in the classroom and thinking about preparing the students for this workforce, right? What did that mean to you at the time?
So my background is actually geology. I went to FIU, I did geology, loved it. I ended up teaching science, and back then, the head of the department, she realized that I was kind of like a technical person. She asked me to teach robotics and computer science, and at the end of the day, I had to learn by myself, right? It was like, okay, what do I do now? So I like this stuff, and I tend to just be attracted by it, so I ended up learning by myself. That's how I ended up teaching computer science, right? So to me, being part of this program, we can actually empower those teachers. I was asked to do it, and I was willing to do it, but a lot of teachers are not being given the option, right? To give you an example, right now we have a teacher in Homestead. She had been teaching economics for 25 years. And this past summer, the principal came to her and is like, this is your schedule for next school year. These are the classes that you're teaching. By the way, you're teaching an intro to computer science class, right? She's awesome. I know her. She's an amazing educator. She's willing to learn, but she doesn't have that computer science background. So there are programs, of course, it takes a word from the community, CSTA, Microsoft TEALS, but luckily we've been able to actually partner that teacher with multiple volunteers they're co-teaching the content, right? So you have the volunteers teaching some of the content. At that point, that teacher is the lead learner of the classroom, so we're building her capacity, and we're inspiring the kids in the classroom to continue in computer science. One of our big focuses are diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? We work with the schools, we create a plan to make sure that this is an opportunity given to a diverse number of students. Ideally, we want every classroom to be representative of the demographics of the school. So if you have a school, 50% boys, 50% girls, we want that class to also be 50-50, right? And then by having diverse volunteers, if we bring female volunteers to that classroom, then of course the girls that are in the classroom, they see themselves and they can say, hey, maybe I can do this, right? It's about demystifying computer science.
So when we think about computer science, it's a big umbrella. Luis, can you share a little bit on kind of like the 101? When we say computer science is actually the fastest growing sector, right, in the STEM job market, job workforce. Can you talk a little bit about what that means to bring and why is that important?
Well, you really are allowing students to take their interests, and whatever that may be. Like, I support a classroom where one of the students was really into makeup, and the volunteers were able to connect that to augmented reality, right? So a student that was probably unlikely to follow computer science into college or university was then shown, hey, maybe my interest with makeup could potentially lead me to study computer science and allow me to make some money off of my interest in computer science, right? These types of opportunities are all around students, but they often don't have a mentor or a teacher who has that industry knowledge that can really connect it for them, right? So by bringing in those tech industry professionals, you're able to really open doors, have mentors in the classes, often that represent, these volunteers sometimes look like the students in these classes. And that's really important for creating that confidence in them and really just allowing them to envision themselves following their interest or a little spark of interest in CS into college or university.
And Willy, so computer science, first of all, any computer science majors here? Anyone major in computer science? Just curious. It was awesome.
How many of you are career changers? So you used to do something different, now you're in tech. You have some people over there, yeah. How many of you were exposed to computer science at the high school level? 2 hands, of 3, of all the people right here, right? Only 3 people were exposed to computer science. Actual research has demonstrated that when you expose girls to computer science at the high school level, they're 10 times more likely to continue computer science. Black and African American and Hispanic kids, they're 7 times more likely. So why are we not more into high schools? Why are we not exposing the kids, giving this opportunity to these kids at the high school level and of course all the levels?
Well, I think in the conversation before, we talked about policy. So Evan Leapart, founder of Kitty Credit, working on a campaign now in terms of what Florida, I'm not sure if you heard this, but Florida has made financial literacy a requirement for high school students. So they are now mandated. Outside of that, what have you seen, and this is to either one of you, what have you seen as the primary motivations for schools, and maybe even what are some of their biggest roadblocks?
So as far as computer science, there is actually a mandate by the state of Florida that every single high school has to offer a computer science class as an elective. Now, the key word there is they have to offer it, right? So if the school doesn't have the teacher to do it, doesn't have the funds to do it, they don't promote the class. And the kids they get an elective sheet, right? And they see a code there. They don't even know what classes are being offered, right? So at the end, when this process of electives happens, then the school looks at the numbers and says, hey, we only have 5 kids who are interested. We don't have to teach the class, right? So that's why we only have 38% of the schools, even though the state mandates that you have to offer it, right? So it takes a village, right? And we need to make sure that everybody's involved into this, like creating policies so we have computer science.
Yeah, and even, I mean, statistically, the biggest drop-off point for someone studying computer science, in particular girls, is during middle school, right? Like right after middle school. So with TEALS, the program is basically saying, we're going to give you the support you need to launch it. Now, some of the teachers that you all work with, can you talk more about those that are beginners? Like, what are the transferable skills that those teachers often have that allow them to be good computer science teachers?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a need for soft skills in education, and that really transfers into, you know, the professional world. These teachers are great team leaders. They're great with connecting with students, but they often don't have the knowledge in computer science or STEM to really be able to share that with their students.
So yes, so we create teaching teams with the teacher and the volunteers, right? It's not only one volunteer assigned to that teacher, and then they help each other, right? You have the teacher who has the experience of being in the classroom, they know what pedagogy means, right? And then you have the volunteers that can make that real-life connection to the material, right? Part of our job is to train the volunteers and to continuously give them feedback. So we actually have to observe the volunteers every once in a while, and I constantly see that real-life connection happening in the classroom. My favorite example is one time I was there, and then the volunteer was teaching, and he stopped, and it's like, oh, by the way, I just did this last week at Google. And the kids were like, oh my God, we're learning things that are happening at Google. So that's what we want. We want to make sure that we inspire those kids to go into computer science. And you heard it was Google, so we're actually industry agnostic. This is part of Microsoft philanthropies. What we want is to help those kids go into computer science, and our volunteers are from over 700 organizations across the United States. They're not just from Microsoft. Why? Because it's about giving back, helping the kids go into computer science.
Awesome. And Microsoft you're currently looking for volunteers to come and help support. The program is growing from 6 schools last year to
16 in South Florida.
So that's amazing. Congrats for that. I want to thank you guys for joining the stage. Absolutely. Appreciate
you
it.
so much for
Keep up the
having
good
us.
fight.
You guys can be part of this solution. We're not saying we're the only solution, but we're some of the solution. And if you guys want to be part of it, just look for us. We'll be around. Thank you.